It's pretty easy to see why the western part of Panama is such a birding hotspot. And here, we're exploring the hot and arid lowlands that are teeming with farming and agriculture, before then heading up to my favorite habitat of them all, this gorgeous cloud forest. Over the next 2.5 days, we see an incredible diversity of species, but there's one that's really the top of our minds. Once we got off the plane, we loaded our bags into the tour van, and we were straight out birding. There was no wasted time this day. And at our first of many roadside stops in the morning, this was our first bird of the day, a mangrove cuckoo. And the first raptor of the day was this distant roadside hawk. I couldn't believe how hot it was getting already that early in the morning, and as I shot this Savannah hawk, you can see the heat haze problems I was having in the video. Next up, we hiked out to this playa, which had some good birds in it, but again with the heat of the day at the distance I had to shoot, the video isn't very compelling. But highlights included 50 blue-winged teal, a couple of black-necked stilts, and a few short-billed dowagers. And despite the heat, we still did get a few other highlight birds, including a pretty decent look at this pearl kite. But before we wrapped up our morning, we did find this, one of my favorite sightings of the day. This fiery-billed aracari was poking its head out of its nest, which is hollowed out in this tree. We ended our morning session after the aracari and finally started making our way up in elevation into the cloud forest to the hotel. But still, a very hectic morning with the travel, but we still saw some great birds. After a quick lunch and a little bit of downtime, there's no rest for the weary as we're back out here in Volcán Baru for our afternoon outing. And we're birding along this road, which winds through the forest and leads to a secret lagoon. The good news was we were hearing a lot of birds, but the bad news was they weren't giving us great looks. And as we continued the scan, the winds really started picking up and the temperature started going down. The light sprinkle of rain and the distant sound of rumbling thunder let us know that our time tonight might be cut short. Okay, I thought this was the dry season. We'd already come this far, so we picked up the pace and made it to the lagoon. With another new thunderstorm developing nearby, our time here was brief, but boy, the atmosphere, it was a vibe. When even the usual high flyers have decided to hunker down for the night, it's usually a pretty good sign that the day might be done. That night, once we got back to the hotel, I made sure to get a good night's sleep, because in the morning, it was Resplendent Quetzal time. It's Quetzal Day, and the rain overnight has subsided, but it's made for a pretty foggy drive to start the morning. But it didn't take long for the fog to clear, and we started making our way up the foothills of Cerro Punto, and the cloud forest looked gorgeous that morning. I found it interesting to see how these little farms tuck into the valleys and go right up to the tree line of the forest. And first up out of the van is this familiar yet surprising face. The hairy woodpecker can be found all the way into western Panama. It's about as south as they get. Our oohing and awing only continued after the toucanet as we saw this pair of long-tailed silky flycatchers. We got both the female and the male.
The male, yeah. That is the male up there.
And on any other day, this bird may have taken top honors, but we moved on. Ever so slightly up this hill, it happened fast.
I must have just missed it.
Then, in another tree close by, was a second one. Eventually, the Quetzals took off, but I was very impressed and say that the bird definitely lived up to the hype. It was a huge relief to have seen him and got this pinnacle species for the tour. After the Quetzal, it was still very birdy, and this trail was laced with new species we hadn't yet seen.
Slate-throated? Yep. Yeah. Still in there, Jim?
A light rain started to fall, so we came back down the hill, but there were a few hummingbird feeders set up at a house in the neighborhood right by the trail, so we couldn't help ourselves. I was absolutely loving shooting slow-mo footage of these hummers feeding with the rain in the background. And while the hummers were the star of the show, some other birds still made their way in near the feeders too, including this slaty flower piercer. And I'll give it up to this common Chloraspingus for really going after that berry. This location is fantastic. It's a birder top spot, and this ended up being one of my favorite outings of the entire trip. After eating the most interesting piece of lasagna I've ever had, we're out here for the afternoon walk at Finca Drácula. Finca translates to a farmhouse or rural house, where Drácula isn't about our fictional character we know. It refers to the orchids that grow here natively in the cloud forest. And the hike took us along this beautiful river, even though this guy wasn't too happy to see us. And first up on this walk is a new Hummer for the tour, followed up by a returning visit from one of our favorites earlier in the morning. The looks we got here along the river were fast. And some were, hey, I actually know that one. And then some were completely brand new and awesome. Eventually, we came to a bridge that crossed over the river that we were hiking next to. And this shot here is why I think the cloud forest is not only my favorite habitat to bird in, it's my favorite habitat to be in. It is perfection. I eventually broke out of my scenic daze and got back to the birding because we still had a few new species to see this afternoon. And we wrapped up our day with a brand new tanager for the tour in this stunning silver-throated. It was another day down again in some beautiful locations. The next morning, we're checked out of our hotel and we're on our way back to David because we have a flight back to Panama City later that afternoon. But of course, we're birding on the way, and if this sign is to be believed, then I'm in the right place. And first up this morning is this crested ore pendula in its unique hanging nest that one person in our group secretly told me thought looked like a testicle. We moved on from the ballsack nest and then found another new tanager for the tour in this scarlet rump. The female scarlet rump was nearby too, and it's crazy to see the difference in coloration.
Back here, the satellite center.
And we ended this location on two hyper-local specialties that were awesome to see.
Everybody got it?
First is this Chiriqui foliage gleaner. And then minutes later was this spot-crowned euphonia, and you know it's something when the guide gets excited. And how hyper-local, you ask? Well, here's the range map of each. Very cool to see a couple of birds that could only be found in such a small part of the world. Our last stop before catching our flight back to the big city is here. It seems like a good spot for us.
This is a milk.
But birds aren't the only thing this location specializes in. He's making bien masabe, a Spanish-inspired dessert, which is very popular in regions like Venezuela, and of course here in Panama as well. When asked about some of the ingredients, like any good chef, his recipe is top secret. We got to try some, and of course, it was delicious. And the first bird at Birder's Paradise is a great look at this laughing falcon. This was the first place we'd been to on the tour that had feeders and chairs where we could just sit and shoot until our heart's content. It was pretty great. While watching this buff-rumped warbler forage on the ground, something got my attention out of the corner of my eye, and it was this hit and run by a painted bunting. Another frequent visitor to the feeders were these green honey creepers where we saw both the male and the female. Another fun find here was this tiny olivaceous piculette carving out a new home. It's one of the smallest woodpeckers in the world. This place even gave us some new hummingbird species for the trip, and we could have sat here all day long, but we've got a flight to catch. On our way out though, guess who showed back up? And then, not to be outdone, we found this. We were never gonna leave. We did finally pull ourselves away and made our flight on time, but we all agreed in the group that Western Panama was legit, and Birder's Paradise here easily gets a Birder Top Spot Award. Coming up in episode 3, we're back in Gamboa, and our guide takes us to another of his top secret spots. An owl crashes our dinner party, and I get my first ever sloth in the wild encounter. Oh, it's a little baby sloth.